Welcome back to Conversations with Jackie and Bobby. I'm Bobby Angel, one of your hosts, and with us is Father Jerónimo Espinosa. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You did part one of this conversation with my wife, Jackie, and I highly encourage you, if you haven't listened to that, please go listen to that first, because you're going to get his testimony, and they have a lot of fun, and you just share your heart, because some people think that priests just come out of the womb with a collar on. When it's like
unholy and
no, there's so many twists and turns, just like all of us in life. Like, we have free will, we make decisions. Sometimes stuff goes wrong. Sometimes stuff happens to us. Like, we get curveballs that throw us for a loop. But thank you for your yes to Jesus. Thank you for your saying yes to your vocation. And you've blessed our family in the limited time we've gotten to be friends with you. In our California house, we had a lot of priests visit, and every table at some point had Mass celebrated on it. Every table was holy. And I think you were the first one to celebrate Mass on our island here. So,
and I remember it was also
the resale value's gone up.
Thank
you.
And it was also for like consecrating this ministry that you were about to start and everything.
Yes.
Which it was, I remember, was beautiful. Yeah, and
yep.
your whole team was here and everything, and your kids. Yeah, I remember that. Long ago.
So you're from Colombia, not the sportswear store from the country.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. Yeah.
So,
please do not hashtag with a U, please. I beg you.
Sponsored by Colombia. What have been some of the cultural differences that you've had to adjust to from like South America to North America? Because you've come up here to study. You're about to go back, but you're going to be coming back and forth for different ministry events. But just in terms of culture shock, like, what took you by surprise in coming here to the States?
I don't think I'm surprised, because I've been coming here for my family lives here, so I've been like in the church and how they celebrate. When I was living in Germany and Austria, I saw different things. You know, Vatican II, like when they rearranged the whole liturgy things, they gave power to the Conference of Bishops to change a couple of things because of the culture and everything, which is beautiful. And then the U.S. has a different way of doing things, their own way, like in different countries and everything. So when I was here, I already used to that. But culturally, I think it's more reverence, which I like better. I want to share something. When I was ordained in Colombia, and I came back here and I started serving Mass, and then went back for a couple of ordinations, and I served there. It was like, why are you standing up again? Like, kneel. Because I was already used to the way you serve it. I'm 1 year and a couple of days of being a priest. And I've been a priest more here than in Colombia. So I'm already used to the way you do things here. So when I was there, it's like, okay, why are you standing up? Why are you not kneeling? Why are you not? Because there are different ways. So I think that the way of reverence, I think, is higher in here. And I think it's very beautiful, because then at the end, reverence shows us that when we enter the church, we enter in the real kingdom of God. There is heaven coming down. So that's a big difference. Also, the culture of having it in one church, Latinos, Americans, but also, Vietnamese and all those. Mm-hmm. I remember a couple of years ago when I was in LA and I talked to Archbishop Gomez, and he told us, like, we celebrate Mass here in more than 25 languages a Sunday. Mm-hmm. Because of the culture, so in that way, I think that it's very shocking that it's a very open minded religion in that sense. Like, they celebrate in different languages because there's communities that they only speak that language, and the church tries to respond
right,
like they were not only at home, meaning their countries, but like home in the church. And I think that's very beautiful, and we don't acknowledge that that's a beautiful thing. And we use it sometimes to divide churches and all that stuff. That's kind of not a good thing, but the effort of giving the people of God like they were at home, I think that's very, very beautiful. And again, the music, all that stuff. I want to miss the music, the way you worship and everything. I think it's amazing. I wish we can have that.
I was in formation for the priesthood for a few years before I discerned. No, I was called to marriage. But that was in Florida. And so the minor seminary, at the time we went to Miami. And so also very like cultures from all around the world. And I remember sitting like in my pew in the seminary, and I had a guy next to me from the Dominican Republic. The guy behind me was from Haiti. The guy like next to me was from the Bahamas. And another guy just from like Vietnam, and just it was this like only in the Catholic Church. We're so split. We're so like tribalistic nowadays. We stay in our echo chambers, and even here in Dallas, it's been beautiful. Like the parish that we're at, it's just cultures from around the world. It's beautiful to see that as the church is Catholic, universal. It's the whole. It embraces all while not forcing you into uniformity. And that's something too in America. I know we can get myopic with like how we want the liturgy and how we want things to be done. It's like that's why traveling is so important to see like cultures around the world. Like it's beautiful. It's the same mass readings every Sunday, from here to Germany to New Zealand. Like, but how they do it is going to be very different.
And I think that we, or you as Americans, you can grow.
Me.
Yes, you can grow in something that is like a saying. Is like sometimes here in America they believe that they're at the belly bottom of a lot of things, and even in religion and things, and that's like a prideful thing sometimes, and also comes out of not knowing, out of ignorance. Ignorance not like a bad word, but of lack of information. So when you get informed, you see that you have a richness, but that richness is in everywhere. For example, when the pandemic hit and everything, and I do get it, we stopped drinking from the cup, right? Oh, but and the whole mess and the whole situation, but you're the only ones in the world can do that. People in South America, people in Europe, we do not drink from the cup. Canon law states that you can only drink from the cup, and don't quote me on this, I don't know it perfectly, but I know it's Holy Thursday. If you are in a seminary, and I think that's it. Or and maybe Easter, but that's it. But you having that a possibility here, it's amazing. It's beautiful. So those changes, I think, in liturgy is important for us to understand and to know that that's the richness and how to kneel, what to do, how do you sing, if you kneel in this part, if you respond or not in this part. I think that that's the beauty. And when we learn that, we expand our capacity to love our neighbor, even though he praises and worships in different language, in different ways, because at the end, it's the same God. And I think that's a richness in there that we know it here, but not here. It's like a lack of connection between the brain and the heart sometimes. And that happens in the church, like we have not everything, but most of the things are divided, Hispanic ministry here. I hate this word, and they use it, and the white for the Americans. Like, yeah, but they're also Americans. Come on, and if you're in Texas, come on, Americans bought Texas.
Then it's y'all
of the Mexicans, and they were all trouble with the war, and then they needed money, and then they bought it. So they used to speak Spanish the whole time here also. So in that sense, like getting that connection of the brain and the heart, I think it's lacking us. It's a lack. And we can grow even better in that as a church to respond more to the people that are coming to our pews.
I mean, I want to talk about 10 different things with you on this, and we are going to talk about silos and how so many parishes we kind of have an English speaking and a Spanish speaking world, and they don't really connect. So I want to come back to that, but in terms of just Spanish, I took Spanish 4 times. ¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
Está muy lejos de acá, don't worry.
I lost you already. And the importance, though, of like being able to receive the sacraments in your own tongue, like that's powerful. In the seminary, which was in Miami, you had to learn Spanish because for the state of Florida, it was like, listen, you need to learn Spanish. And the Spanish speakers, the poor Spanish speakers, they had to learn Greek. My friend Julio was not happy about being forced to learn Greek. But there was a few classmates that were a little like, oh, why do I have to learn Spanish? And it was more just like, why do I have to learn anything aside theology and philosophy? And one of the formators was like, if a person should be able to receive the sacraments in their own tongue, like if you're dying, like you would want a priest speaking your language to you. Like, and that kind of set everyone like straight, like who was a little, puffed up about why do I have to learn a different language? When it's like, yeah, the church is beautiful. We bring everyone together while also respecting the cultures and the parts of the world we're coming from.
I think that getting to understand that not only like in the church, but in culture overall, I think is essential. I remember when I was 10 years ago, I was living in Germany and Austria. I remember one of my family friends that we met in our first World Youth Day in 2005. She was a professor of social studies. In that school, it's a small town. When they graduate, they know 3 languages apart from German. It's always English, and then you can take or French or Spanish. So it's open. They prepare them for everything.
Yeah.
That's being like open-minded. And in here, because everyone speaks English, it's just that. And I think that's having a narrow mind, and that's not good. And if you're a Catholic and you're going there, it's like to reach more people, to preach it in their own language. I think it's very important because it feels that God is with you in that sense. And sometimes there's a lot of people that came here, not because they wanted to. I'm not gonna why they came here, but they didn't want to, and they had to because of their difficult situation and all that stuff. And if someone has, you don't have to speak perfect English. My friends, my American friends, my white friends, they mock me the whole time about English, and I don't care, and I love it. It's not about pronunciation, enunciation. It's about communication.
Right.
And if you find someone that tried to speak your language and try to reach you in your own words. For example, I knowing you this week, I was in the hospital, and there was a Mexican guy, perfect English, but I did the whole thing in Spanish, and he was so grateful.
Right.
He was born here. He's 94 years old, and I did it in Spanish, and he felt so at home. You know, I could have done it in English. He speaks better English than me, definitely. I did it in Spanish, and he was like so grateful, and the people, and I tried to do it the way they wanted, but also the way they needed it. And that's why I love it, because you can go back and forth in English, what we call Spanglish. And in my church, I do a lot of Spanglish, even in Mass. I do a lot of Spanglish back in Colombia with the people that know English, because there's different words in English that are very appropriate. Like in Spanish, there's a lot of appropriate words that you don't have in English. So going back and forth, and that, that's a culture. Because if you ask me, and I've said this because I've asked this people, if the Mexicans feel like if they're whole, and sometimes they don't, or the Hondurans people, the people from Salvador, it's because they're born here, right? So they're full American. Because of how they look, it's like, oh, yeah, but I'm Mexican. But they say that to Mexicans, they say, no, you're not Mexican. And then you say, no, but I'm American. Say, no, you're not American. Like, they're in the middle of what I am. But they have riches because they speak Spanish, they speak English. And we as a church responding to that, I think that's amazing. And then you can travel to 23 countries.
Right.
If you know Spanish, right? If you know French, of course, it's Africa and France and Monaco, but that's it.
Canada.
Yeah, Canada. Oh, yeah, Canada, even though that French is different. But yes, Canada, yeah. But even like having that as to know things, like culture, that thing is also a very good thing, open-minded in that way. So learning a different language and to respond to the needs of our church, I think is essential. And people love it. I have never felt in a church someone that says, hey, your accent is super bad and everything. They appreciate, and I know if an American tries to speak Spanish, we appreciate that effort. Bishop Burns, when he comes to our church, and the churches are just full Hispanic, he preaches in English, full English, but the first part of the homily, he reads it and it's in Spanish. A lot of things he do it in Spanish. Of course, our bishop, he's very good. Spanish is very good. He preaches in Spanish and everything. But that effort, the people is like, my pastor is trying to communicate in my language.
Right.
Small details that are beautiful and makes you feel that God is close to you. People will say, no, that's not nothing. For us, when our language is different, is something, it's powerful.
Yeah, no, and there's something there too to overcoming perfectionism. Like, I think for me, that was what was crippling about trying to speak Spanish was I would need a drink in me to like really get comfortable and like I not care about looking foolish because I'm misstepping over words and whatever. So especially in a ministry setting, especially in wanting to bring Jesus to people, it's just doing it. It's attempting it and communicating, as you said. It's not about like the perfection of the language. It's I'm trying to bring Jesus into this conversation, into this person's life. And so how you utilize Spanglish even for youth, because we both come out of youth ministry. My wife Jackie did as well. Like, I remember the priests growing up who were, maybe a little more nerdy, but were willing to get in skits. Were willing to get in the mud pit at like camp weeks at the summertime, and just was like, he's a human being and he loves us and he's willing to do this for us. I felt the same way with John Paul II. It's like, I've never met this guy, but I know he loves me. Like, I know he loves the young people around the world. And so how do you utilize Spanglish even to like kind of reach a generational divide of like, we're growing up in America and we're speaking Spanish, but we know English really well, but it's this kind of like connecting my faith to go to a deeper level?
I think this is kind of tricky because we have wounds. All of us, we have wounds. We talked about it in the last episode. And one of the wounds that the Hispanic culture has is they're not welcome. They don't want them here. Even though not all the Americans are saying that. Like, most of them are not saying that. But they feel that. And that's why they have, like, their own ghettos. Mm-hmm. It's my thing, so I'm not going to learn English. I don't want to go to that store. It's just my Hispanic community and all that stuff. And it's difficult. When I came to the church, they thought I was a white person. And they were looking to me weird and everything. Of course, I don't look like a full Latino, but I'm not blonde. And it was shocking to me how, like, they were, like, reserved and everything. So I started talking in Spanish super fast. And they were like, okay, he's one of us.
Yeah.
But, we need to build bridges. So my way of building bridges with them is like, let's go back and forth in English and Spanish. Even during the homilies, in my school that they teach them English and everything, most of our kids are Hispanic. And I'm not preaching to the teachers, are just white people. So what I do is I just go full Spanglish, or a lot of times just Spanish in specific things, and it's fine. And if the teachers don't like it, they have never said that. I'm a priest, maybe because of that. But it's getting closer to them. So, and they appreciated that. They have said to me, Father, you know what? It's nice because we also do that back home. We do the Spanglish the whole time. We go back and forth because most of them, their parents, don't speak English. Maybe they understand it, but they don't want to. So the kids, they do, back and forth.
Right.
So they're bringing like their home into the church. And I think that's very important. And they felt very welcome in that way. So giving, because that's they live in a world that is full Spanglish. So you start texting a couple words in Spanish, then in English. That's a beauty, that languages, and then after the second or third, whatever, it's awesome. I used to know French, I used to know German, but I know that if you keep going to more languages, you can start communicating with more and more people and getting to know their culture. That way, I think, for the youth, this is essential. Even though when they text in Spanish, they misspell a lot of things. Why? Because they grew up in English, they do everything in English, so Spanish is not their forte. But even though I tell them to keep writing in Spanish, doesn't matter, it's a perfect tense or whatever, I don't care.
Right.
Like, you forgive me, the way I butcher sometimes English, I'll forgive you when you don't say the proper word in Spanish, and that's fine. So it's amazing. And they teach me sometimes when I write on the board, and they say, Father, it's not, this is with T, this is with an H, and I do the same thing. So it's also a way of, we're humans, and that's a way of connecting. So if someone wants to learn Spanish, you should go for it. It's difficult, but you should go for it.
How do we, and this is the $1 million question, do a better job at bringing together what is often like a divided parish experience together, where we've got English speaking and we have Spanish speaking, and they never really interact or come together? You kind of have like a schizophrenic like parish. There's like two communities in one property, and it functions, but like, just looking to where the church is headed, and particularly in America, it's like we've got to, I don't know, bring it together somehow. And I don't know what that looks like without, I think, again, we want to respect the cultures, and we need to be able to worship in a coherent way. So I don't know the answer. I'm putting this all on you. So good luck.
Well, my take on this, I think, is more simple. Like, big problems or situations are fixed or are addressed better way in small things. Mm-hmm. So addressing those things like plainly and openly. I remember Life Teen this summer. We had parishes just full American and then like white people, and then we had a lot of Hispanic. Again, they're Hispanic, but their English is perfect. So we did a Spanglish mass, but when I wanted to share something with them specifically, so I don't give ammunition to the Americans, I told them, you know what, and in Spanish, I say, guys, we need to learn to worship also in English. You've been here, and because you always worship in Spanish, even though your English is your forte, you don't know the answers in English. You don't know how to praise and worship in English. You don't know no song. You should start learning. There are different ways of doing it. This country that has welcomed you and this church that has welcomed you has so much to give you. You better step up and learn that way so they can also learn. And then in English, I told the other guys, like, and you have to stop believing that the Spanish thing is only kumbaya thing or whatever. Like, no, work together and start doing things that maybe the grown-ups will not do for you.
Right.
Do it. Start mixing together. Start talking together. What we can do together. Because I think that's the essential part. Like, how can we start building bridges? And small ways, not huge things. For example, before I get with my idea, the whole Cinco de Mayo. Ask a Mexican what is the Cinco de Mayo. That's nothing. That's an American invent. It's invention. It's nothing. So I said to my people, like, hey, are we gonna do celebrate Cinco de Mayo? And they were like, Father, are you kidding me? Like, why? Like, come on, I'm Colombian, so I'm not even American. So
right.
Come on, walk me through it. Like, that's nothing. Like, okay, tell me. Like, no, that's nothing. That's something that they just invented, but that's not even Mexican. Say, okay, thank you for teaching me. But then you can teach them the other way. And teach them not because you want to stop that thing. No. Teach them that it's not a thing, but that you can also party with them.
Right.
Because what's wrong with partying? What's wrong with having tacos? What's wrong with having nachos? You know, there's nothing wrong. But when you start doing small things and start saying, okay, you know, we're going to have a night of Hispanic things, and why don't you do something for the whole parish? Come on, we have money here. Start giving translation things to our people that know English. My parishioners, a lot of them know no English, and that's why they don't. But all of them that know English, they go and they worship in Mass at 10 a.m. That is our English Mass, and they do that. So start doing small things together in that sense. I think it's super important. Because at the end, when you do like, como se dice, bazar, like, how you call that? Like a festival.
Yo no sé.
Yo no sé. When you do a festival, for example, fall festival or spring festival.
I was gonna say food. Food seems to be the only time the communities come together. But the sad thing is that's usually the only time the communities come together.
You do tacos, everyone goes. You do barbecue, everyone goes.
Always a great starting point. But from there, and the pastor can't do everything. But this is where maybe even like a common worship night, where it's going to be English and Spanish worship. And you switch back and forth. And so there's plenty of songs that exist that you can, again.
Last week I met personally Ricky Vasquez, that I've been hearing him praise and worship and with Zeke and everything. And I told him, like, man, I've been following you and I've been hearing you for quite a long. And I really appreciate when you do small things in Spanish. Mm-hmm. I think that's beautiful. Because it's just repeating small words and all that stuff. We can start doing that. Or small testimonies. If people knew the traumas of most of the Hispanic people that came, I'm open. So I always tell the people I met, and say, you came here, what? Did you swim or did you came by airplane? Openly. And then they share their stories. And when you get the traumas, what they went through, like, oh, come on, you went through all of this and we're just separating you with everything but the food. Come on, let's do something better. And,
right.
And when we get to know the person,
mm-hmm.
I think that will get us connected more and more and more. And we're lacking that small things again that we can get connected between our churches.
And it's not to erase.
Oh, no.
It's because I remember in college there was like a Catholic student union we had that did like a Monday night thing, and then there was a Friday night Hispanic student thing. And it was like we did retreats together. We did all sorts of stuff together during the week. But I would never want to collapse that into like, now we aren't distinct anymore. And I remember like Ricky Vasquez, who led worship at some conference I was at, and it was a Hillsong song he was doing, and he flipped to the Spanish version, the Spanish chorus, and half the auditorium is just singing it so loud, and I just started tearing up because it's like all these kids that like this is their mother tongue, and like how often do they get this from the big conference stage?
I remember this summer, Steubenville, Lone Star.
Mm-hmm.
So Bishop, he's the auxiliary bishop of New York, and he was there. And then I think it was Andrew
Laubacher,
Yes.
A-Lob.
A-Lob. They praise also in Spanish a little bit.
Yep.
Wow. Of course, we're talking about Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So half of the thing was just of Latinos. And the bishop, he's from Dominican Republic, I think, or I don't remember well. And he speaks it perfect in Spanish. And he spoke in his humbly in Spanish. And the Latinos stand up and it was clapping.
Yeah.
Like having those small details like we are together. Because there's a thing. They know perfect English. If you talk to them in Spanish fast, the kids will not understand you. And second, again, they worship in Spanish because they go with their parents.
Right.
So my question will be, how are we going to respond to those when those parents, so second, third generation, their parents passed away, they go to heaven, hopefully, what are we going to do with them? Because their English will be perfect, and maybe they're not used to. I have a couple of young adults, they never go to Mass in Spanish. They love the English one. So those are challenges, and I think our diocese in Dallas with the Synod, we are trying to respond to that. Because at the end, here, and this is like a picture of all the U.S.,
Right.
46% of the Catholics are Hispanic, but under 29 is 52.
So that was another statistic that was kind of like thrown in the face of some of my classmates who were a little like arms crossed, like, why do I have to learn Spanish? It's like, listen, the future church is a Hispanic church. In America, certainly. Like, and you need to know Spanish because this is where it's headed. And whether or not, like, that's the thing too. Like, I'm sure there's a tension of like, I want to retain the language and the culture for my family and my parents. Like, that's important, as well as like, but I do like the liturgy or the Mass in this area and worshiping in English. Like, I'm sure there's a tension. There's an inner conflict even.
Yes.
Because I've seen it with like other cultures and languages where there is that like, I feel like I'm turning my back on my parents if I go all in this direction.
And that's the tough spot that the teenagers and the young adults are because of their parents. So working in ministry, it's super important to work with the parents because they are the ones who are telling them that like you cannot lose it, you cannot lose it, you cannot lose it, and making them feel like guilty.
Right.
And I think we need to address also that. I'm not saying this in a preaching. That's not the
way
you
can
address
preach.
it.
You can preach. You're a priest.
But you're not supposed to address those things in the preaching.
Yeah, you don't.
But
Yeah.
in catechesis and talking to them when you go to the families and everything, because it's super important. Because it's not about giving it back to that. It's expanding the possibilities of belonging to the church.
Right.
And at the end, you belong to the church, and that's the most amazing part. Like you belong to the church, regardless of how you worship. Again, we have 23 rites, meaning 23 ways of celebrating Mass, and they have different languages. This is the richness of our church, and we need to address it in a better way. And I think we need to step up in that way. We don't need to wait for the pastor to do things. We can do small things. We could do a Bible study.
Yeah, your pastor will be relieved if you bring an idea and say, "Hey, Father, I have an idea for even like a Spanish-English Bible study?"
And
amongst 18, 24-year-olds, or you're trying to figure out like how do we, do something for the men? Like let's do something here where we bridge the divide. And your pastor will be like, "Amazing, go for it."
And there are traditions. I think that we need to learn traditions. Be honest. We go to Europe and we love those traditions. But when it comes to South America, I don't know, come on, we're like second, third level category, and that happens. And you cannot deny that. So learning the traditions of because at the end those traditions are Spanish. Latin America, we're Catholic because the Spanish conquer us. And most of our traditions come from the Spanish people. Go to Sevilla and all that stuff. Whatever they do there, we're still doing that in Colombia and in the rest. So learning those traditions with Our Lady and all that stuff, not only Our Lady of Guadalupe, but
Yeah.
every country
Right.
has his own mother, or its own advocation, even though she is the queen of all the Americas, from Canada to Argentina and Philippines, So learning those traditions, I think it's richness more than dividing, and that's our job.
And I mean, Mary as, the model of around the world who's bringing all cultures, all peoples under one church.
If we knew that story more than like a storytelling for a bad story,
Right.
like the deep, it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, every
what
year
she did.
Well, Guadalupe alone, every year I feel like they're discovering new things about the tilma. They're discovering new stuff going on with the science of how it's not even on the fabric, it's above the fabric.
And those, for me, if you ask me, those are second details. For me, the most important one is that the Indians were second category. The Spanish was the first one. And they were trying to give them the word of God, the word of God. The words that San Juan Diego speaks to a lady, they're amazing. I am the manure of this, to use a proper word. I am this.
Keep it PG.
Yes, I am this. And then she says, I know you're this, but even though you are my beloved son. Could you imagine the beloved mother saying this to you? She's bringing him, is reconstructing his identity of what he is. And we need, as a church, to keep doing that. That, for me, that's amazing. And how she converted 10 million of Aztecs. And the other priests that were trying to do their best job couldn't.
Right.
Why? It is treating them like what they are, beloved sons and daughters of the Father. And I think that will change the world if we just reread again and again. Not the short story. Go deep into the proper words of what he used, of what she uses. And all those signs are amazing to reconstruct what? The wounded. The people that feel that they're not the best. I'm not just talking about Hispanic people. There's a lot of white people that could feel the same way. Reconstructing that is amazing, and they do feel it, that they are second or third category. My kids, I tell kids, but it's like let's go to this praise and worship. Let's go to St. Anne. No, that's for white people. Say, are you kidding me? Stop it! Come on, stop. Go, grow up from that. Go out from that. Not all of them are gonna say that. And when they went, we're so welcome. Everyone saying hi. I'm not telling you. Get out from your bubble too. Because it's also it's both sides.
Yeah,
it's small things.
It's all around the world.
Yeah.
We all can stay in our bubbles and our silos. We can all fall to that tribalism. And in terms of the wounds and the stuff we carry and we don't ever talk about, and that can go through generations. Men, we both love men's ministry. And I worked at an all boys school for years, and I love the tough machismo exterior. But you get them on a retreat and they're crying the first night. I love it because it's. Men need it. And I think sometimes we're slower to admit there's a spiritual need. There's a spiritual depth I'm hungry for. So what have you experienced in terms of
being
able to reach men? What has borne fruit for you?
Well, my story starts because I suffered with my dad. He used to, and I say it because I love my dad, and I went through therapy and healing and everything. He used to beat us bad. Very bad. Even though he's a holy man and everything, he has his wounds.
Yeah.
And he beat us and everything. And then, thankfully, I addressed those. It took me time and everything, and I've been addressing those. But after the Jump Out Healing Center retreat, I realized that because of that, I've been doing more man ministry than girl ministry, if that makes sense. And I didn't realize that until, I don't know, it was March of this year. That I do a lot of spiritual direction with young adults. If you are 40-ish, find another one. So
you're still young.
Yes. So and I start realizing it's just men. We are so wounded that we don't recognize. We don't let ourselves realize that we have that. We have that Jericho wall.
Yep.
We have to pretend because we're men and we're supposed to provide and all that thing. And then it's mixed with theology. Like we need to provide. It's like, what's wrong with you? That's not the way. And of course, we cannot be vulnerable because I'm supposed to be this. And at the end, most of those things, no one's telling you that. It's just imaginations in your head.
Right, yeah.
And then when you get there, it's like, what's going on? What's going on? So accompany them and hearing them, their stories, I think is very important. Like going deep and letting, like first, I think it's trust. I think that one of the things is that ministry is about trust. So letting them at their own pace tell their story.
Right.
We're so eager to open, and it's like, no. You're just there to listen, to let them talk, and they will open themselves in the correct moment. Of course, you have to do a lot of prayer, a lot of intercession.
Fasting.
Yes, I do. I do a lot of fasting and more during confessions. I do a lot of penance for them because of their wounds and everything, so they can open on their time, and I'm there to help them. And I think it's beautiful when they feel secure that they don't need to pretend.
Right. Because then the heart's open. And
I'm not disclosing anyone, but most of the time, the people that have more trouble of naming sins with the name are men than women. They're so ashamed. So they know sixth commandment, ninth commandment. I took something that's not mine.
Number 6.
Yes.
Number
and
9.
Number 4 is like, yeah, what's number 4?
Say it.
Because if
Say the words.
If you don't name it, God cannot take control and power of that. When you don't name it, the devil will still have power over you. And that's ammunition for him. To what? To keep telling you the lies that he's been speaking to you.
Well, it's the lie that God doesn't love me in all of this. And somehow I'm going to hide it. Like, I'm going to hide around, like, and still get absolved. Like,
and if I say it, it's going to be a reality. And I don't want that to be a reality.
Yeah.
My sins and my woundness. But building him up, like you can do that, and having trust in them, I think that's amazing. The difference between one another is that I have found, again, this is not a recipe, that men are more, because they like challenges, we're built like that. When you give them work to do, wow. They are like I've done this and I've done this and I've done this.
Yeah.
They are eager to do that. More than girls, when they face challenges, they meet them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I was talking the other day with my brother about that. And I said, and they grow faster because of that. Because at the end, spiritual direction, like therapy, is your job. It's not a job of the therapist or the spiritual director. It's the job. I'm just praying. The other one has to move, to pray, to jump, to do everything. So when you are for them there, and you hear them and you challenge them, because it's mercy, but it's Padre Pio, it's mercy, but challenge them, like, yes, but step up. You can do it.
Right.
And then start doing this, and this. I think it's amazing. You give them a platform of, it is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay, and you can open your wound. You can, and I'm gonna still love you. I'm still gonna love you. The people are gonna love you. So the other day, someone sent me a DM and told me, like, hey, Father, do you think we should talk more about this? So it was about pornography and masturbation. And I don't know, it was a priest or someone saying, like, this is, like, everyone feels it, and men more. Why aren't we talking more about this in our preaching? So I said to my friend, like, yes, I agree. I think we need to be cautious in the preaching because maybe we could feel that, it's, but we need to address it more and more. So they can know that that's a wound, and I need to address it, and I'm not alone,
right.
And I can step up. All that.
The devil keeps us isolated, especially as men. Like, I'm somehow the only one dealing with this.
And accountability, I think it's important. And everyone talks about accountability, but they don't teach them how to do it.
Right.
So when they talk to a friend, I found this. So, Father, I talked to a friend, and I said, yes, I also suffer this, but that's not a big deal. So, Father, what I can. Like, he's not, like, he's a Catholic, but he's not in the same level of wanting to go out of it. So what can I do? So you need to teach him, because it's already an effort to go to disclose what's in your heart. And then you disclose it, and the other one is like, but that's nothing, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's like,
I know.
So the accountability, and I think it needs to be better work. So it could be more fruitful, but knowing that you can open your heart and the other one will love you exactly the same way, I think essential. So yeah, I love working with men because because they are tender. I always say they are like teddy bears. You know, they are thick in the outside, but inside they are marshmallows, which I love. It's like, why do you need to pretend? Why do you need to be tough? Oh, I'm tough. But you're not. You're a freaking marshmallow inside.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. That's not. That will not define what you are, because at the end, what you are, you're a beloved son of the Father.
Period.
That's it.
Yeah. No matter what you've done, no matter what you haven't done, like, you are loved. Your actions don't define you. But you, in like receiving the love of the Father, like, that's when you are confident. That's when you know you're loved. That's when but that takes time. Like, then you'll fly. Like, then you will change the world. But until then, you're just kind of like have this facade on, and you're trying to tough it out. And it's like, be not afraid. Like, be not afraid of, like, in your own time, with the right company, with the right, setting, with the Holy Spirit, like, open up what you've been carrying. And God's going to take that and see, like, you are loved just as you are.
In the training for the priest in John Paul Healing Center, there was I don't know if I can say it, but there's an exercise. Maybe you've done it in the retreat also, and that made me understand how people needed confession and how they needed it. Because then Bob said, it brings more healing when you're more open, when you go deeper. Of course, we're being cautious. So I said to Jesus after that retreat, I want to do that. Like, use me in that way. So being super lovable to the teens in that way when they say the things, and then just open your heart and doing a prayer over them. So this summer I've been in a couple of summer camps and everything. Tons of teens. And then I repeated, and then I went to another retreat, and I found some of those teens from the summer camp, and they said to me, Father, like, the best confessions that I had, the best two, I have it with you, and I know why, because at the end he was so confident that he already stepped out, and he was going out, and then he said, no, I'm going to come back and say, Father, you know what? No, I haven't said completely, and then he just boom. Say thank you, and I feel confident. And he spilled all his guts. Boom, 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 boom. And then we pray a prayer of healing, of renouncing the lies, of opening that heart and letting Jesus, because Jesus is so respectful of our freedom that if we don't open our hearts, like, he's not gonna enter. He's not tearing the wall apart. He's gonna take it brick by brick, but we need to give him permission.
Right.
So I think that healing that we all need, confession is the best way of doing it if we're honest. If we just, I always tell, you know what? Are you nervous? Yes. Okay, so close your eyes, bow your head, breathe. God already knows what you've done. He still loves you. That's why you're here.
Right.
Don't worry. Just close your eyes and just say it fast. Don't give me the whole story. Just say it. And when they just say it at the end, Bobby, I seen it with my eyes. And of course, I wept. The faces of the teens, how they enter, how they go out, because of Jesus healing them and embracing them. It's amazing. And more men than women, to be honest. I think we carry more wounds. But again, the facade, like, we need to be strong. But we need to open our hearts to Jesus. And yeah, so that part of ministry, that's been my joy in 1 year and a couple of days. Like, I love it. I love to bring the mercy of Jesus to people because they needed it. And of course, we have a lack of first priest, but also availability of going to confession. If I'm pissed with the church about something, is this. There's like 1 hour in the week. You kidding me?
It's like Saturday between 3:45 and 4:30.
Terrible.
If you're late, we close early.
Yeah, no. My parish, because I can respond to that, we have 3 days, 1 hour and a half. But all our parishioners know that if they need to go, and if we are there, we confess. And I confess through the whole day, always, regardless of what I'm doing. I always stop, go, bring the confession, because they're working.
Yeah.
Maybe they pass through the church and they cannot go to Wednesday night for that. So being available to bring the mercy of Jesus, I think we need more priests, and we need more priests doing that.
Yeah.
I think that's the joy. Connecting this with what I talked to Jackie. Those are the things that you cannot do. You can do a lot of good things, but you cannot do that.
Yeah.
You were not called to do that. So we are called to do that. And then maybe I can do that. You can keep preaching. I can just sit down in a confessionary and start doing that. You know, Padre Pio in that sense. You know, that's our call.
Yeah, I've been blessed by many priests who I've pulled aside in an airport and, you know, like just odd times where I can't make it to the posted confession times, and they're like, no, absolutely, let's do it. And so if it's been a while since you've been to confession, if maybe you didn't have a great experience a long time ago, you know, every priest is different, and some priests are more attuned to this. Like, I think we have a generation of priests now who are more attuned to, like, it's not just like you say it and then you give, like, you know, just a very dry one Our Father, 3 Hail Marys.
Yeah,
it's I mean, the popes we've had like several popes in a row, like, kind of wag a finger at priests of, like, you need to be compassionate. Like, this is the person starting to share their heart, and if they get, like, the finger wag,
going over there,
they get, you know, you shut the person down. You could turn a person off for life to the church. And I have been blessed with so many priests who've been patient and just, you know, gave me more than the bare minimum in the confessional, you know. And I know we have a generation of so many good priests who want to give that, pay that forward. So if you're listening and you haven't been to confession in a while, again, or if you had a rough experience, this may be the Holy Spirit poking you to, like, go.
I agree. If it's difficult for a grown-up to go to confession, to open his heart, imagine a teenager who doesn't know what's happening when the world is saying X, Y, Z, whatever. And it's like, okay, so I need to say that. I'm so ashamed. This is terrible. And then those bad experiences, it will wound your heart. And that's not the face of the Father. We are called to be there as the face of the Father. Not just saying, hey, do whatever you want. No. But being the face of the Father, I think is essential. And it's okay to feel ashamed. It's okay to feel petrified. It's okay to feel like, I cannot say anything. It is okay. And I want to tell you, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this as a priest, that I am so sorry if a fellow brother wound you in a confession. I am so sorry that has happened to you. But you should go back, because it's God the Father calling you, because He wants to hug you. He wants to meet you where you are and take you where He wants you to be. But not only today, tomorrow, every single day. That's God with us. That's Emmanuel. And again, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hope you can find a good priest that could show you the face of God and His mercy. I think we need that more in our church. And again, I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Amen. Father Jerónimo, you know, you're a year and a few days. We're going to have you back when you're 2 years and a few days, a priest. Where can people go to find you if they want to reach out or just see what you're up to? Are you on the internet, social media, anything?
Yeah, I am. I'm in Facebook, but not that much, to be honest. I'm not that in Facebook, because I know that Facebook is already for old people. So I'm not like, I have.
But you're young and cool.
Yeah. Well, so I do not have TikTok. People are asking me, and I'm like, I don't think so. But I'm on Instagram. Most of my posts and things are just preaching, and I always try to have been quite a while outside, but I always try to upload every Sunday English and Spanish, just a minute and a half of the homily or something. So you can find me over there. It's Father dot Jero, so not with a G, with a J, Jerao, yeah, of Jerónimo, the first part. And yes, you can go there and you can ask questions, whatever. Again, this is always happening to me. Yes, I do spiritual direction. It's very difficult. If you are more than 40, do not ask me, because I'm going to say no. Why? Because my vocation is for the teens. Like, there's a lot of priests, I'm being honest. There's a lot of priests that can help a lot of people. Not a lot of priests have the vocation to help teenagers and young adults. Yep. And that's an art. I think it's an art that I've been training for quite a while. So, but I'll be praying for you, okay? So for you to know.
Yeah, we'll put his info in the show notes. Yeah, you've been through plenty of schooling. You get some time off now. So, but thank you so much, Father, for being here. It's been a pleasure.
No, thanks for the invite, and know that you, your family, and this podcast is in my prayers, and all of you. God bless you.
Yep.
Whoa, what did you think of that episode, Bobby Angel?
Tell us in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, all the things now. Or don't. Do whatever you want.
Whatever you want. You have free will.
God bless.